All right, welcome everyone to EV 101. Thank you for joining us this evening. I think the slides will be pulled up here in just a sec. Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for your patience as we let folks join the Zoom room. I would like to first start off by introducing myself and the speakers this evening. I'm Lizzie Carrad. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator with the City of Albany. Our speakers today will be Suzanne Lucen from San Francisco Department of the Environment and Rebecca Milliken from the City of Berkeley, Office of Energy and Sustainable Development. Special thanks to the Ecology Center and 350 Bay Area for promoting this event. Next slide, please. The goal of our workshop is to leave you with resources to help you choose the right car for your lifestyle. Please enter your questions into the Q&A rather than raising your hand. We'll save questions until the end. We are recording this presentation and it should be available for participants after the webinar. And we will also send a follow-up email that contains links for all the resources that are mentioned during this workshop. Finally, you will see a number of different vehicles showcased in these slides today. We are not endorsing any specific make or model. They are for illustrative purposes only. Now, before we begin, we are going to launch a short poll. So let me pull that up. All right, everyone should see a poll on their screen. I'll give everyone around 30 to 60 seconds to send in your answer. I'll give everyone 10 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And here are the results of our preliminary poll. All right. Thank you all for taking our poll. Now we have a good sense of who's in the Zoom room. And with that, I will pass the mic to Suzanne Lucen.
And I'm glad you said mic so that I turned on mine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. So let's take a moment to acknowledge that the climate crisis is also a health crisis, an economic crisis, and a racial injustice crisis. And who suffers most? Low-income communities of color, especially of those living next to oil refineries and highways where the air pollution is worse. And people are noticing and taking action, that environmental justice and social justice go hand in hand. And so we're not here really to sell you electric cars because they're high tech and fun to drive, which they are, but also because they're an integral part of the solution for our health and for our planet. And so let's talk about health. These pollutants from gas cars are responsible for smog and exacerbate asthma, heart disease, respiratory illnesses, and can even impact brain function. And here's the visible impact in air quality. During the initial lockdown, people all over the world saw how air quality improves when there are fewer cars on the road and less combustion from factories and industry. This picture shows India Gate in New Delhi before and during coronavirus lockdown. So obviously we don't want to have a pandemic to reduce pollution, but we can retain those clear skies by switching to electric cars. And let's talk about the other set of emissions from gas vehicles, primarily carbon dioxide, that exacerbates climate change. Transportation is the largest source of emissions in most cities and across the nation. The transportation sector includes trucks, buses, and all forms of transportation, but passenger cars and trucks represent about 70% of those emissions. So we have some control over this picture. And here's another way to think about greenhouse gas emissions from cars. In California, we have about 25 million cars on the road, and in 1 year, they produce a lot of carbon dioxide. How much? Over 270 billion pounds of carbon dioxide per year in California alone. But there's good news, and our take-home message today is that you can drive 100% zero emission right now. You can power your car with rooftop solar, or you can purchase 100% renewable greenhouse gas-free electricity right now. Your community choice energy providers offer renewable energy to most Bay Area residents that's cheaper or competitive with PG&E, and customers can also choose to opt up to 100% renewable electricity. And there will be a link in the follow-up email to help you find your CCE if you're not familiar with who that is yet. And besides driving clean, there are several other benefits to electric cars. You never have to go to the gas station again. You don't have to worry about the price of gas. It will always be cheaper to fill your car, to charge your car, than to fill your tank. You can expect to pay about a third to a half the cost of gasoline to fuel your car with electricity. And they're cheaper to maintain. Gas-powered vehicles have about 2,000 moving parts. Electric motors have about 20 moving parts. That means lower maintenance costs. EV drivers don't have to fix or replace the air filter, alternator, fuel injectors, motor mounts, motor oil filter, power steering fluid, radiator, spark plug, starter, and my favorite, the timing belt. I have a story about that. And there's no catalytic converter to steel and no smog test. And what does this mean in terms of an electric car? This is a typical service notice for an EV, for a Chevy Bolt. EV service includes rotating the tires, changing wiper blades, topping off windshield wiper fluid, replacing a cabin air filter, and inspections. Consumer Reports found that EV drivers typically save 50% compared to equivalent gas vehicles for maintenance. And then how much cheaper are they? Electric vehicles cost more up front, but with the significant incentives that we'll talk about later and reduced fuel and maintenance costs, the total cost of ownership is less than a gas car. This is a comparison between the very popular 258-mile range Hyundai Kona Electric and its gasoline counterpart, showing the savings of the electric version over 5 years. And, clean air, reduced emissions, cheaper to own. What else? Amazing performance. Electric vehicles accelerate quicker than gas-powered cars. They're quiet, they're responsive. This is not a Prius with extra add-ins. And so let's talk about the cars. So this is as of December 2020. There are over 55 different new plug-in vehicles on the market. It's 36 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and 22 electric vehicles. They include sedans, hatchbacks, crossovers, minivans, and luxury cars. A few years ago, most of the available vehicles were short range with about 100 miles. Most of the new cars can travel over 200 miles without recharging. And once you include incentives and rebates, you can find many cars for under $30,000. And so let's take a closer look at the range and cost of some of these cars. So here are a few of the most popular models that you've most likely seen: the Nissan Leaf, the Tesla Model 3, and the Chevy Bolt. All are available for less than $40,000 before incentives, which can be up to $11,000 for many drivers. The Hyundai Kona and Kia Niro are relatively new to the market. They're crossover SUVs and offer very fast charging. And there are more choices now in the luxury segment. You've probably seen the all-wheel drive Tesla Model Y on Bay Area streets. It has an optional third row of seats and can fit up to 7 passengers. So there are now over 36 plug-in hybrid vehicles on the market with all electric ranges from 14 to 126 miles. Most are just under 30, under 60, excuse me. These cars come in sedans, SUVs, and luxury vehicles with a very wide price range. They have a battery and a gasoline engine, and most use the battery first and then switch to gasoline. Plug-in hybrids can be a great option for both all around town, all electric ground trips, and then longer road trips where you might not have access to charging. And there are 3 all-wheel drive SUV crossovers coming in early 2021, the Volkswagen ID4, the Ford Mach-E, and the Volvo XC40. And trucks. Rivian is an all-new all-electric manufacturer that will introduce these long-range vehicles to meet consumer demand for SUVs and trucks. These are expected next summer. And there are a number of other manufacturers developing trucks and vans. Ford recently announced an all-electric transit van coming in 2021 and an all-electric Ford F-150 pickup, probably in 2022, and that will be a game changer. Used EVs can be a great option. You can find many cars coming off their 3-year leases, including the Chevy Bolt, Nissan Leaf, and even Teslas. Be sure to check the range for each vehicle because different year models have different ranges. And the sources for used cars will be included in the follow-up email. So, charging. When you get to your destination, just plug in your car like you plug in your phone. And as we talk about charging, think about where you might have access for charging. Do you have off-street parking or a garage at home to plug in overnight? Can you charge at work or at a nearby public charging station? And if not, we can talk about options during our Q&A. So, level 1 home charging. Every EV and plug-in electric vehicle comes with its own charging cable. You plug it into a regular 120 volt outlet. That's also known as trickle charging. Level 1 adds about 40 miles of range to your car overnight. Most Bay Area commutes are about 23 miles a day, so trickle charging might meet your needs with no additional costs for infrastructure. But if you need to charge faster, you can install a level 2 charging station at home, which adds about 20 to 25 miles per hour of charging. You'll need a qualified electrician and a simple permit to install a 240 volt outlet and the charging station, which averages about $500 and are widely available. And a fine point, the charger is actually located on the car. The charging station, also known as EVSE or electric vehicle supply equipment, ensures a safe supply of electricity to your car. And some models allow you to use Wi-Fi to control your charging time so you can take advantage of better electricity rates. And you can also find level 2 chargers in public garages, shopping centers, and work sites. For longer trips, you can use DC fast charging. Depending on your battery capacity and the speed of the charger and the car to accept electricity, DC fast charging can recharge in about 20 to 60 minutes. You can install this at home. The new generation of chargers are really fast. For example, the Kia Niro can charge 50 miles in 15 minutes, and the Audi e-tron can get 80 miles. Similar to level 2 public chargers, you can find DC fast chargers along transportation corridors, at supermarkets, shopping centers, restaurants, etc. And you can find these stations through your phone apps or your car's navigation system. Tesla has its own network of chargers with almost 2,000 stations across the United States. Teslas charge more quickly than other vehicles, and Tesla drivers can also use an adapter to plug into other charging networks. That is not true in the reverse. And here's a snip of the most popular phone app for charging stations. This map is from plugshare.com, and you can see there are hundreds of chargers in the Bay Area and Tahoe region. The orange markers indicate DC fast chargers, and the green indicate level 2 chargers. Most electric cars come with a navigation system that helps locate chargers and plan your trip. And there are 2 great sources for charging locations, this app, plugshare.com, and the Department of Energy's Alternative Fuel Data Center, or AFDC. Both have trip planners to help you find the right charging route. And more public charging is coming to California. Our goal is 250,000 chargers by 2025. California state agencies will continue to co-fund chargers and approve public utility plans to expand charging. The Volkswagen diesel settlement will also bring hundreds of $millions in charging station investment, including significant investments in the San Francisco Bay Area. And in Alameda County, East Bay Community Energy is expanding DC fast charging throughout its service areas, with the goal of incentivizing development of DC fast charge hubs near multifamily dwellings and transit corridors so that EV adoption can become more accessible for everyone. And with that, I'm going to release the screen and turn it over to Rebecca.
Suzanne, thank you so much. Just give me a sec here to share my screen. Okay. So as Suzanne told us, electric cars cost less to operate, but they definitely cost more upfront. And so fortunately, there's a lot of incentives that can help with that. Suzanne mentioned that most cars are eligible for up to $11,000 in incentives. And if you are a lower income driver, you may actually be eligible for more. So I'm going to walk you through these, okay? So bear with me. The other thing I want you to know is that I'm going to be sending out an email with links to everything that we're talking about tonight, including links for all of these incentives and rebates. So let's start with the big one, the federal tax credit. This is available for the purchase of most new cars. Now, when I say most, it's because the tax credit is assigned to the first 200,000 electric cars sold by each automaker, and then the tax credit phases out. So see if you can guess which two manufacturers have already hit 200,000. I'll give you a second to think about it. But it is it's for Teslas and General Motors that makes the very popular Chevy Bolt. So you no longer can get a tax credit for them. Plug-in hybrids are also eligible for this. The amount is going to depend on the battery capacity, but it's going to be less than an EV. If you lease a car, you don't get the tax credit, but the dealership gets it and then passes on that savings to you. So you apply for that tax credit when you're filling out your taxes for the year the vehicle was purchased. So there may be many months between the time of purchase. Let's say you buy it this December, and then next April you file and you can get your tax credit. All right. So let's talk about the state. The state's Clean Vehicle Rebate Project will send you a check if you lease or purchase. This is for new electric cars. It's $2,000 for a full electric car and $1,000 for a plug-in hybrid. And just one thing to note is that if you're leasing it, your lease has to be at least 30 months to get this rebate. The vehicles have to meet sort of a minimum electric range, and the MSRP needs to be below $60,000. They figure if you're spending over $60,000 on a car, you don't really need this rebate. And there are some restrictions if you're a high income earner. But if you are a lower income household, you can qualify for that enhanced rebate. All right, so we mentioned income qualified drivers. There's a number of great programs. These two, the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program and the Driving Clean Program, are actually both funded by the California Air Resources Board, and they have the same eligibility requirements. The only difference with them is who provides the financing and some different administration. But they basically provide grants up to $5,000, and that can be for used or new cars purchased or leased for fully electric, plug-in hybrid electrics, and even hybrids. The CVAP program, the Clean Vehicle Assistance, is statewide, and the Driving Clean is just a Bay Area program. So this program is a scrap and replace program. If you have a gas car that is 2004 or older and you turn it in, you can get up to $9,500 for an electric car, or you can get a preloaded Clipper card for up to $7,500. You can or put that towards even electric bicycle or car share. So something I need to let you know, though, unfortunately, there's a wait list for this program right now. but in the new year, we should see funding resume for it now. So if you happen to get that EV now this month, you will be on a wait list. We also wanted to mention that some of the community choice energy providers are also providing rebates. So MCE, which is serving customers in Marin, Napa, Contra Costa, and Solano counties, has a rebate for new cars. And Peninsula Clean Energy, which is in San Mateo, has one for used cars. Okay, so the utility. Unless you have a municipal utility, like those of you who live in Alameda County, we are all PG&E customers, and we're all eligible for this rebate. And this rebate follows the car, whether you purchase or it's leased. This rebate is ending December 31st, but there's good news. So I'm not going to spend too long on it. This rebate is being replaced by a larger rebate. This is statewide. This Clean Fuel Reward program is kind of neat because it happens, you get that right at the time of purchase or lease, right at the dealership. So this program is up in effect. I just checked the website today. There's over 350 dealerships that are participating, but it's really important that you check beforehand to make sure the dealer that you're planning to buy is already signed on to participate in the program, so that you can get this rebate right away deducted off of the cost of your car. We also mentioned that Peninsula Clean Energy had one for income qualified residents. This incentive does not have an income qualification. This is only through the end of this year, and you have to be a first-time EV buyer. And it's also good for plug-in hybrids at $700 for those. I think Suzanne also mentioned that you can get a reduced rate for charging if you are a PG&E customer or a community choice energy customer. So right now that's from 12 a.m., so from midnight to 3 p.m. daily. Here's one. A lot of people are interested in plug-in hybrids and all electric cars because they want this sticker, or at least before the pandemic when folks were driving more. So the fee for the sticker is currently $22, and they do unfortunately have an expiration date. They're good for 3 years. You may see different colors out there. It just depends on the year that they were issued. December is a great month to get discounts. Not only are manufacturers trying to give deals on year-end cars, but Drive Clean Bay Area, which is a nonprofit collaboration of which all of our cities here, Albany and San Francisco and Berkeley, participate in, is running their second annual preferred pricing program. So they do a lot of EV education, and then they run these group discount programs where they work with Cartelligent. Cartelligent is a personalized car buying and leasing service. And Cartelligent basically negotiates the deals for you, and they take care of all the paperwork, and it can all be done 100% online. So they've negotiated a range of discounts. They're up on the website on 11 different electric and plug-in hybrid models. And it includes $1,000 off the new 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E. So you might be saying, wow, that is a lot of incentives and rebates. How do I keep track of it all? And yes, it does feel complicated because they do change. There are a number of incentive finders out there. I like this one. It's from the state, from the California Air Resources Board. PG&E also has a really good one as well, and I'll be sharing those links with you. Okay, so you're like, all right, I'm ready. I want to start shopping. Where do I go to learn more? There are a lot of great resources out there, and I'm just going to point you to a few of them. The state's Clean Vehicle Rebate Project has a lot of information about different cars and information about the income types. Plug in America is a nonprofit and great place to just get started, and also to browse for both cars and electric charging stations. But if you'd rather actually talk to someone, I recommend reaching out to folks who are in these electric vehicle auto associations. The Golden Gate is just one, and I'll share that link with you. And this way you can talk to people who own different cars, thinking about the model that you're interested in, and hear firsthand. This is just a screenshot from Plugstar. Plugstar is run by Plug in America, that nonprofit I mentioned, and they can connect you to a qualified electric car dealership. because not all dealerships really understand electric cars. And I also mentioned they provide information on home charging stations. PG&E has a lot of great resources. You can select any electric vehicle model, put in the miles per year, and you can get a comparison to a comparable fossil fuel car. Sierra Club has a fun little quiz. It's real short. You do it, it will suggest a list of cars for you. If this is more your style, you can also download this app. This was developed up at the Berkeley labs. And you have the app on while you're driving around. It kind of tracks your commute and will make recommendations for a car based on your needs. If you are thinking about leasing, I recommend that you check out this website called Charge. It's not the prettiest, but it is a really helpful resource. It shows the best deals nationally with many in California, as you can see here. So this is updated every couple of weeks. And remember, I said this before, that if you are leasing a vehicle, you want to make sure that it's at least a 30-month lease so you can qualify for that state vehicle rebate program of $2,000. So let's say you're thinking about used cars. These 4 dealerships have some of the largest selection in the Bay Area. Rose is in Castro Valley, Baroque is in Richmond, Green Light is in Daly City, and Sky is in Fremont. But, you know, given the pandemic, you may prefer to do things online. So there are a handful of websites. I'll just name a few other than this MyEV. There's Shift, Carvana, Car Gurus, or other ones that you can check out. And again, we'll send those links to you. So some of you may remember this picture. Those of us who are presenting tonight were really excited when this happened. So on September 23rd, our governor, through an executive order, banned the sale of new gas cars by 2035. And since California has the largest share of vehicle sales by state, this announcement is definitely going to influence the national market. So that means we're going to see more electric cars and more charging infrastructure in the coming years. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be getting into our Q&A in just a moment. We will also share our contact information, and you can feel free to reach out to us. We get to spend the next part of our time on Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Lizzie has had the job of queuing up our questions for us.
Yes. So yes, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section. We answered a couple questions throughout the presentation if they were just quick ones, but now I'll go through the more technical questions, which Rebecca and Suzanne are prepared to answer. Our first question, are there any early indicators regarding potential EV rebate and tax credits that might be sought by the Biden-Harris administration, or signals about future California state local incentive programs?
So, I mean, it's all conjecture right now, but if you read the Biden's climate plan, it has all the things in it that those of us who work in this would want. And so we're hearing a little trickle down, at least the city of San Francisco, that we may get something like the Reinvestment Act of 2008. We may get a huge influx of money for projects. So that's really exciting. But it's all, it's all conjecture, and who knows what's going to happen between now and January 20th.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right. Have the new Nissan Leafs figured out the battery cooling problems?
I don't really know. Yeah.
I am not aware. I didn't think that the current models had battery cooling problems. I know that the early models in places like Arizona, were having a hard time, but that was, Leaf was one of the earliest ones to come out, but I haven't heard of that recently at all. I mean, recently in the past, even 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Expect me.
Great, thank you both. Do you need a grounded outlet 3-prong to charge an EV, or can you charge from a 2-prong ungrounded outlet, even if it is slower?
So I'm going to say that's not recommended, but switching out the box for your outlet, that's a fairly simple thing for an electrician to do, and it's a pretty common retrofit for older homes. And that would be my recommendation. Always to be very careful and prudent when dealing with electricity. I don't know, Rebecca, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll just add, maybe you mentioned this, Suzanne, on the charging. So you can get a charging, you can get the charging station that Suzanne was showing us a picture of, that they cost, around $500. But you can also just get that 240 volt outlet installed with an electrician. And for much less money, you basically get an upgraded charging cable. I was poking around, and those are out there as well. And that's a much less expensive way. I don't know, they probably don't charge quite as fast. It really depends on your need. I know for myself, I just trickle charge. So I do that level 1 that Suzanne showed us with just my regular 120 outlet, because I don't, I don't need a lot of mileage on my car on a regular basis.
Great. Another question that is popping up in the Q&A is, for folks who rent their apartment, what are some things they can do to address charging needs?
Well, as we said, if you're not, it's a multi-unit dwellings are something that we're all working on in this field, because we know that it's a limitation for people who live in those buildings. As I mentioned, East Bay Clean Community Energy is looking at installing fast charging hubs near multi-family buildings to help with that. In certain situations, you can talk to your building owner about installing charging or having access to a plug. We've heard people make informal arrangements. Workplace charging. Rebecca, do you have ads for that?
I'll just, Suzanne, correct me. I think there is a law that is, as a renter, if you request to the property owner to install a charging station, it has to be done, but you would have to pay for it. And that's going to be really expensive. So it's not, maybe there are a couple of you out there that could do that. So for the time being, we know that this is a limitation, is if you don't have workplace charging, maybe considering a plug-in hybrid at this time. But there are some people who are really committed and they make it work using public charging, but it is harder. I mean, that convenience, the majority of people plug in at home. And that's,
and I'll add to that I work with EV owners in San Francisco, and a lot of them, they incorporate charging into their trip to Whole Foods or another place that has DC fast charging. So there's looking at the apps that show you where these locations are, you can sort of get a sense of where that might fit into your normal routine. And then the other thing is, I'll put in a plug. There are also hydrogen fuel cell electric cars that operate more like a gas car in terms of fueling it. You go to a station and you fuel it, but it's zero emission, it's electric, and they have about a range of about 360 miles. So they're a little more expensive, but it is an option for people who live in multifamily buildings.
Great, thank you both. There are a few questions generally about battery life and disposal concerns. So I don't know if you have some thoughts on electric car battery and disposal.
Go for it, Suzanne.
Batteries are, so when a battery is no longer sufficient for transportation, it still has 80% of its useful life. So there are many people that are trying to figure out how to monetize that. Let's see, we call them second life batteries. They can be used for energy storage. They can be used for energy storage in places where you have renewable electricity. And I just read that there's a battery recycling facility that's breaking ground in New York State. So as the industry moves along, those things are sort of following, like how do we monetize what we do with the batteries? I think the BMW i3, they actually designed their battery so that it would pull right out and go into a racking system because they were designing for second life. And I know that the early models of EVs, you know, they were the new models. So there were issues with battery life and such, but that stuff's pretty much been resolved. I don't hear those kind of complaints anymore. I haven't for a long time.
Great. I will note for attendees that there are questions in here about specific models of cars. And Rebecca, as she mentioned, we will be sending out links that you saw during this presentation that have tools to help compare models of EVs for your lifestyle. So we encourage you to check out those links when you have a chance. Next question. Sorry, I'm trying to group questions. Rebecca, would you mind repeating the tax rebates that may be ending soon or will be capped?
Sure, that's a quick one. So right now, there's only 2 manufacturers that have hit that cap. That's Tesla and GM that makes the Chevy Bolt. So there is, and they've phased out already. So there is no $7,500 tax credit for Teslas or Chevy Bolts. So that's why sometimes like a car that has a higher MSRP actually ends up being less expensive because of that tax credit. All other manufacturers are still eligible for the tax credit. And I hope maybe with a change in administration, maybe we'll see an extension of that so that more vehicles, instead of being at 200,000. Oh, and then in terms of other programs, I said that the PG&E rebate is ending December 31st, and it's being replaced by this statewide clean fuel rebate, which is a good thing. It's more money, it's $1,500, and it's at the time of when you purchase or lease. And the other one is the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. That's that scrap and replace program. Right now, there's a wait list for that program. That's the one that's up to $9,500. It's a really good program, and you can stack it with other things as well. When I send out the follow-up, it's going to have all these incentives. It tells you which ones stack together. So that one has the wait list now, but we have been told by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District that they will be getting new funding in the new year.
Great, thank you. Next question. From a city communication standpoint, what have you found effective in getting residents' interests in EV? Getting residents interested in going EV? Incentives, information, reducing barriers?
Well, events like these, Electric Vehicle 101, ride and drives. There's an annual National Drive Electric Week in September, and then there's the Charge Across Town, huge ride and drive in the first week of October usually. And that's sort of looked at as one of the better ways to introduce people to cars, because it's you're not in a sales environment. People bring their cars, and there's usually EV drivers are pretty passionate about their cars, and they will show up at the ride and drive so that they can talk to you about how awesome their cars are. Yeah. And also, I mean, on the other end, permit streamlining so that the big companies can actually install charging in cities without a lot of red tape. They're pretty complicated projects.
Great. I'm going to try to put together 2 questions here. First question would be for someone who qualifies as low income, how can you clarify which program it is where you can exchange your vehicle for a Clipper card? And then also, does it make sense to buy a new vehicle with all the incentives and rebates, or get a used vehicle?
Okay, so the program is the Clean Cars for All. And again, as soon as in the next 48 hours, you will get an email for me. And if you can't, you can Google it, but if you can't find it, you'll get the link there, and it will have the income eligibility. You may be surprised. A lot of these are 400% of poverty level, and you might say, what's that? But it may be higher than what you expect. And I apologize, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'd have to go look it up. I'm sorry, the second part was, is it better to go with a new or used? It really depends. There are, you can really get some great deals on a used car. It depends if the range of that car is going to meet your needs or not. You kind of have to sit through and look at, what you'd be eligible for. The challenge with, if you're not income qualified, is you have to front this money, and then you have to wait for those rebates, incentives, and tax credits to come in. If you are income qualified, and especially if you go with a program that's providing you with a loan, that's providing you with a grant, and then they also have a loan for the remainder. That's like that Clean Vehicle Assistance Program, for the Driving Clean. You kind of have to work the numbers a little bit and figure out, what's more important to you. Obviously, once a new car leaves the lot, it loses its value, very quickly.
I would just add that to factor in there, if that carpool sticker really means something to you, consider how much that means to you, because it won't come with a used car. And that's really important for a lot of people.
Thank you. Can you please talk more about the lower electricity rate from 12 to 3 a.m. for charging? How does that apply?
I'd have to go check what the decrease is, but basically, whether you are, again, if you are a Community Choice Energy member, so I live in Contra Costa County, I'm an MCE member, it doesn't matter, it's the same. As long as you are we are all PG&E customers, unless you're a municipal utility, you sign up for it, and it's discounted during that time. And it's more expensive during the peak hours, which are from 4 to 9 p.m. And then there's kind of like there's off-peak, and I'm forgetting the name of the one that's in between, the kind of the shoulder. But if you have solar panels on your roof, it's not so much of an issue, because you're, during the day, you can provide your own electricity. But for someone like me who doesn't have it, I charge my car at night. I also delay my dishwasher to run at night. And then I do laundry, before 3 p.m. to take advantage of that lower rate.
Thank you. Is fast charging more detrimental to car batteries than level 1 and level 2 charging?
So what I've heard is, yes, that your battery is going to last longer with the level 1 and level 2 charging. But the newer cars and bigger batteries, if I understand this, it's kind of less of an impact. And I'm trying to remember the science behind it, but it's going to take. They also degrade much more less quickly than the older batteries before. So it's not ideal to jump from one fast charger to another in the same time. But if you have to do that on occasion, so be it. But remember, other than 4 cars, I looked. So of all the new cars, other than 4 models, all of them are 200 miles or more. And as you saw, some of them are 300 miles plus. So you're going to be going, pretty long way, unless you're doing these huge, treks all the time. I know many people who have driven cross country. It's often easiest for Teslas, but I know someone, took their Chevy Bolt on a road trip out to Arizona, up to the San Juan Islands, up in the Pacific Northwest. So I definitely hear of EV drivers doing these things with ease.
What, if you can just quickly summarize again, what is the maintenance like for electric vehicles in comparison to internal combustion engine vehicles?
So I'll just say, so I got a Leaf a few years ago. We had this great discount going, and I was bringing it in every 6 months, thinking I had to maintain, my warranty, and I learned I didn't. But basically, they would inspect it, and that was it. So the only thing that you're going to have to do is you would rotate your tires. You do check your brake pads. You might change the cabin filter, the wiper blades, but it's really minimal. And all the new cars, let me say, will have a warranty on the battery for, I know when I got my Leaf, it was 7 years. I don't even know what the newer cars are. So it's not that there are zero maintenance costs, but they are significantly reduced if you compare that to your gas car. And my neighbor just had their catalytic converter stolen just this week, and so Suzanne mentioned that, and that's another one out there for the new Prius drivers.
Thank you, Rebecca. That answered one of the questions too about the Prius catalytic converter issue. Next question, is availability of spots at charging stations a problem in the region?
It depends where you go. So as Suzanne mentioned, your car has like an onboard navigation system to find charging stations, but the majority of people use this plug share. But if you're on your desktop computer, you can also check them out, as well as the Department of Energy one. So the neat thing about PlugShare will actually tell you which charging stations are in use at that time, and they'll also tell you if one of the charging stations is broken. When you start, there's going to be a little nervousness, a little hesitation, but as you start to do your regular commute, you're going to find out, that, oh, I can go, there's a free one I know at the grocery store where I shop. If I go there Sunday at 5 p.m., someone's going to be there, but if I can hit it up at some other time, it's going to be available.
Great. A question. Oh, here we go. Do brakes last longer on EVs since they use the motors to brake along with the physical brakes? And then on the same note, we're getting a few questions about how long the typical electric vehicle lasts.
I think Rebecca has more experience with brakes, but my understanding is that was the question, right? That brakes last longer for that reason. Brakes last longer in electric vehicles, but Rebecca's the driver. I had my catalytic converter stolen, so I just use an electric bike now.
I'd have to do some research on that one and get back to you. I am a driver, but honestly, I don't drive much. So yeah. I haven't put many miles, even though it's been a number of years.
And then the other question is, what is the typical lifespan of an electric vehicle?
There are Teslas on the road with 250,000 miles on them. I don't know that. I don't know how. So if the market is less than 10 years old, right? And so that's the experience we had. And we had the vehicles that were introduced at the beginning, they were new cars. And so I don't hear about them failing. And we have all these cars on the used market. The other thing to consider is that they do come with a warranty on the battery, and that's the big piece. And if those are 7 years, I believe, that's competitive with a gas powered car. Yeah.
Are there any safety compromises in electric cars, different weight composition, etc.?
They all have to pass the same safety tests. And yeah, they all have to pass the same safety test as any other car. So there's that. And they're also, electric cars they're new technology, and there's an investment in that new technology. So they tend to have more bells and whistles on less expensive cars than you would find in the gas car market.
For our next question, do either of you have any knowledge of either car share or car rental programs that are expanding their electric vehicle offerings?
We have heard that Hertz had planned to expand its electric vehicle selections, but I don't know how well everybody's doing in the pandemic. One thing that will drive more electric rentals is the clean, I can't remember the name of it. It's the California rule for transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft that requires them to have a certain amount of zero emission vehicles by X date. And they are, Uber and Lyft will tell you they are platforms, they are not car companies. And so they rely on charging networks to supply charging and for other networks to supply the vehicles. So Hertz is one of them that they work with. And they're, with all the rules in California, there will be more electric car rentals. I would like to see that a lot faster. It's a great way to have a personal ride and drive. You can also rent electric cars through Turo, T-U-R-O. There's tons of them in the East Bay. So you can try, I mean, I can go around the corner and rent a Tesla for $100 a day if I wanted to, but that's another way to rent and use an electric car and also to maybe to try some out.
You're on mute, Lizzie.
Yep.
Thank you. Next question. We keep our bikes in the garage, so there isn't room to park a car. Are we allowed to park on the street and plug into the outlet in our garage, which I assume means running a power cord?
Don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do that. Yeah, you're going to see people doing all sorts of things. But since Suzanne and I both work for cities, we're going to tell you it is you know, a hazard and it's not permitted. So I know for, you know, if you have a driveway, that's fine. I run the cable is pretty long that it comes with. So I put it in, you know, it's in the outlets in my garage. I run it under the garage door. I can run it through the mail slot out to the driveway. But don't use an extension cord and don't go over the sidewalk.
Is there a minimum number of annual miles driven before it makes sense to buy an electric car?
I'd say, depend, you know, in terms of air quality and carbon emissions, you know, go for it. Right? You know, or, you know, thinking about time of replacement. A lot of people, it's about the next car. So when you're ready to get your next car, so, you know, a lot of people want to drive theirs into the ground, go for it. But the savings on, you know, depending on how much you drive, if you are a big commuter, the savings on gasoline is just tremendous, and the maintenance as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. If your car is sitting unused for a week or more, would it lose electric charge and would it have to be recharged?
No, I don't know. Mine sat for longer than that. Suzanne, do you know something that I don't know?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, do you know something that I don't know? I don't think there's any problem with having it sit unused. I mean, my car sits unused. Yeah, never heard of a problem with that.
Great.
And to the person who wants to, you know, use their garage for, I get it. You could also just install a 120 outlet and do trickle charging. If well, that's only if you have a driveway.
Great. Just scrolling through to see if I see any themes, because it looks like we just have a few more minutes for questions.
And while Lizzie is scrolling through looking for themes, if folks can just stay on, we will end in 1 minute, and then we have just a 2-question post survey for you that we'd appreciate if you would stay on for. So maybe Lizzie, just one more question.
Yes. Because we're in winter, maybe we'll end on this question. What about keeping the battery plugged in during colder weather? Does this hit your electric bill hard?
It's no different. In fact, you know, there are winter rates and summer rates, so it's actually should be less expensive to charge in the winter as it is. Again, really recommend that folks who do get a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric car, that you take advantage of those reduced charging rates through PG&E.
Great. We will now close our question section. I'll remind everyone again that a lot of the questions in here, there will be many links and resources and information for you to run through when we send our follow-up email. And you can even watch this presentation again to help fill in the gaps. So if your question wasn't answered, you should be able to find an answer in that email.
Or just reach out to us and we'll do what we can to find that answer.
Yes. And with that, we will finish out the presentation with another quick poll. All right, I'll give everyone another 30 to 60 seconds to fill it out. All right, I'll give everyone 5 more seconds. Okay. So thank you for taking our poll. It looks like people enjoyed learning about EVs this evening and maybe even are considering an EV in their future. Great, well, thank you everyone for joining. We hope you enjoyed EV 101. And Rebecca and Suzanne, I don't know if you have any final thoughts.
Thank you, Lizzie, for hosting us, and Jeremy, if you're in the background at City of Albany, who did all the great behind the scenes tech work, and Suzanne, thanks for joining us. All right, yay, Jeremy.
Yay. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for your interest, and go out there and buy a car.
Great. Have a nice evening, everyone.